Goomy! What is up, guys? Steven here, and today I'm going to just be talking about Smogon OU is actually doing a suspect test of the Dynamax mechanic as a whole. So just kind of wanted to put out a brief video of my thoughts on this. I don't really have a whole lot of time right now to seriously ladder to try to get Rex. But I've just kind of been playing with some weird teams and whatever, just kind of trying some stuff out to see if I can find unique mons in the meta. I've played about 250 games on ladder, so I feel like I have at least some amount of grasp of Dynamax, and just kind of wanted to read through this and just talk about my thoughts. So they are testing Dynamax, which obviously includes Gigantamax, as a mechanic. So their reasoning is actually, they go pretty in depth here, talking about why they're wanting to suspect this. It's the latest thing that's come in. It's similar to Z moves and Mega Stones, but kind of puts both together. So essentially, Dynamax doubles your HP and then gives you max moves, which have increased base power, 100% accuracy, and then secondary effects as well. So they talk about some examples here: Gyarados, Hawlucha, Corviknight, Darmanitan, Hydreigon, Togekiss, and then just some other options. So they talk about, they also had this thread here of Dynamax discussion. So it seems as though the entire OU Council is in favor of banning Dynamax. And to me, that's a little disappointing because, it is the new mechanic in the new game. And obviously that's not a good reason to keep it in the tier, but it was something that I was excited for in Sword and Shield, and honestly I'm kind of interested in playing some VGC just based off of the fact that Dynamax is a much more balanced mechanic in that format, and really Dynamax is broken in singles. If I were to try to preserve the mechanic, really to me, the biggest problem, there are two big problems with Dynamax, and they're both just completely overwhelming. So the first and biggest problem is that you can un-choice lock with Dynamax. So you can even with Galarian Darmanitan, which its ability is literally a choice band. You can be choice band, choice scarf, Darmanitan, and then just Dynamax and change moves. And in particular, this is just so good for wall breakers, like Specs and banded Mons, because it forces so many 50-50s and makes any team that isn't predicated on hyper offense just play suboptimally to beat you. I mean, a good example I could think of is just like a Specs Dragapult clicking Shadow Ball, and a switches in like Toxapex or Clefable or something like that can take two, and it comes in and it does 45%. So now say the Clefable player has to play so suboptimally, because if they just click recovery and their opponent Dynamaxes, then they've just lost their answer to the Dragapult. Or Dynamaxing defensively has so many limitations associated with it, because you can't actually heal you still get your leftovers or anything like that, but every non-attacking move turns into max guard, which doesn't heal you. And, really you want to be using your Dynamax offensively, so wasting it just to, proccing it for fear of your opponent Dynamaxing is, again, just another, 50-50 prediction that's not in favor of the defensive player. And a lot of what I play is bulky offense, and it's just so unviable in this metagame for those reasons. I mean, you're forced into 50-50 situations where, if you're not going first, you're just at a huge disadvantage. So everything has to be fast, everything has to be offensive, or you're running full stall. So, the first thing is just switching switching from choice lock moves is insane. I mean, it just lets you break teams and, open holes by beating counters that you shouldn't be able to beat. In a similar vein to Z moves, but on a worse level, because you can change moves and you get multiple, you get 3 turns with it. And defensive Dynamaxing, in my opinion, is just not good. So that's really the first big issue with Dynamax. The second one, if I were to try to keep the mechanic at all, which I'm not really sure if it should be, probably not, is just the flying max airstream is so good. One of the most common Z moves that was used was Flying EMZ, because a lot of things really appreciate getting strong flying stab because it's such a good offensive typing. And, things like Gyarados, Hawlucha, if Dragonite were in this game, Togekiss, all of these things are abusing the max flying move, because not only does it do a bunch of damage and it's a super strong stab move, it increases your speed too. And boosting speed while doing other things has just always been so broken in Mons. It puts things over the top. So Baton Pass, I feel would have been fine if you couldn't, pass speed. Speed is just such an important stat, that it's, being able to get kills and boost speed at the same time. And you're just so bulky with the Dynamax that it's not there's just a lot of situations where I'd really just lose nothing by Dynamaxing and just trying to get 3 speed boosts here. And the things in this list really are some of the best examples of it. I mean, Gyarados, it gets Moxie, so it can pretty much Dragon Dance as it gets kills. Hawlucha is, super good, because it gets the ability to boost its speed. It can set its own terrain now. Togekiss can Nasty Plot and then just start to get speed boosts, so it'll do a whole bunch of damage, as it's attacking in Dynamax, and then the speed boost helps it to kind of do what it does best in terms of flinching down opposing Mons with Air Slash. Corviknight as well gets Power Trip, which increases in power based on how many boosts you have. So not only can you bulk up, but you can then Z flying just to get the speed, so that you're basically unstoppable at that point with Power Trip and just the natural bulk. And you can't phase any of these Mons. Dynamax completely prevents Roar, Whirlwind, all the phasing moves from working. They can't be flinched, so you can't even stall it out with Fake Out or things like that. They go through Protect, and you still get the added effect, which honestly, most of the time is more of what you want than the damage. But a Protect is just giving someone a free boost, basically. And because of all of these things being in the tier that are just so threatening, Ditto is right near the top in usage, because everything's getting boosts, everything is snowballing out of control, and you got a Ditto that can come in, and then ironically it's one of the best Dynamax users because it's Choice Scarf, so you can revenge whatever you're attacking, and then keep all the boosts in Dynamax and switch moves. So to me, I think in singles, Dynamax is just completely overwhelming. It really takes, it takes like counters kind of out of the picture, because it forces players who are playing with a bulkier, more defensive build to be on pretty much the wrong side of 50-50s constantly. Of do I heal? Do I have to proc my Dynamax here? And if you get those wrong, then you're screwed. And defensive mons don't put on a lot of offensive pressure, so the pressure really is on that defensive player to make the right play, and the offensive player can very easily just switch out into their appropriate switch into the defensive mon, because it's not putting out a lot of damage, and you can lose a Dynamax or lose 40% on your Pokemon because you switched anticipating a Dynamax, and it's just it's really a lot. So if I were to vote on this suspect as they've laid it out, I would vote to ban the mechanic, because the options on this are either ban the mechanic or don't ban the mechanic, and I would ban the mechanic if between those two choices. And then ideally what I would like to see ultimately would be choiced Pokemon cannot Dynamax, and the using a flying move while Dynamax being banned. That's obviously like a complex ban and doesn't go with the cartridge mechanics and all that. Neither does Sleep Claws. So I'd be interested to see if that ever becomes an option, or if this is just going to be banned and we're going to play Gen 8 basically as Gen 7, less Z moves, less Megas, less half the decks, which honestly is just not super exciting, because I think there were some good and bad things about all of the mechanics, but it would kind of bring it back to more of like a Gen 5 type meta, just with less mons, and less is more in the meta. I like that there are less mons, but I think it would just lead to a really, ironically, getting rid of this mechanic, I think it would make the metagame super duper fat and bulky and not fun to play. So we're kind of at a catch-22. In my ideal world, end of story here is I would vote to not let choice Pokemon Dynamax and get rid of the flying Dynamax move, which are the two biggest problems in my opinion. So I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts down in the comments. Appreciate all of your support, all of you guys that are watching, and hope to see you all next time. Peace.